Guard 1, this is Guard 4, the Raven is loose. The voice of Cadet Rashdat, the Lance's Jenner pilot, whispered into Fritz's ears through the neurohelmet's built-in speaker, the airwaves unable to fully rob her voice of the frantic excitement. The Raven had slipped by her and could now threaten their flank. Just one of the catapult's homing missiles brought down by the light mech's spotting laser could spell ruin for any member of the Lance. "I'm in pursuit," she informed them. Threads of Ambition, page 44, by Lauren L. Coleman. Today's episode is brought to you by Jeremiah's Micro Krill Energy Drink. If you've ever been consuming Jeremiah's Butte bricks and thought, wow, I'd love to have the same experience, but with this brick rendered into an inoffensively colored slurry, we have the drink for you. With almost 3 of your daily nutrients and a whole bunch of flavor, Jeremiah's Micro K energy drinks are sure to hit the spot and help you make it through the longest of work shifts, family arguments, or meetings with HR to discuss that thing you did last week that now has to be added to the employee training manual. Run, don't walk down to your nearest Jeremiah Butte Brick retailer today to reserve your crate of the new Jeremiah's Micro Krill energy drink. It's sure to hit the spot, and you can sleep easy knowing that billions of micro krill gave their lives so you could consume almost 50 calories of protein drenched in half a liter of high-quality sodium benzoate suspended in a gelatin matrix. If that doesn't sound good, then you must be an off-worlder. Now on with the show. The 3020s were a banner decade for Battlemech construction. After centuries of making do with the artifacts of past technological glory, the great houses of the Inner Sphere were finally in a position to begin to innovate. Battlemechs like the Hatchetman, Wolfhound, Cataphract, and eventually the Haramoto Chi would stomp from production lines as a testament to the renewed determination to find bigger and better ways to bring war to the enemy. With grand dreams of technological superiority, but perpetually feeling the pressure from its proximity to larger and richer neighbors at the end of the Third Succession War, the Capelllan Confederation began to look for ways to maximize the resources they had on hand. The Raven program was the result of taking what electronics countermeasures and electronic equipment that was available and trying to cram it all into a single battlemech that could act as a force multiplier and command units. With the discovery of the Helm memory core still years away, the Series Arms Electronic Warfare X1 equipment was bulky, requiring 7.5 tons of space for installation. This meant that any battlemech that carried it would have to give up significant capabilities. Opportunity cost spares no one, remember? The RVN-1X prototypes that survived Chancellor Maximilian Liao's strict desires were admittedly an imperfect creature. This 35-ton machine was slower than initially desired, lightly armored, and the electronic systems it carried were easily taken out with even light damage. The Hellespont Industries team did what they could to make it all work, but without access to better technology, their options were limited. Constructed from their in-house Hellespont Type R chassis wrapped around a standard Omni 175 Fusion engine, the Raven 1X was limited to a top speed of just 86 kilometers per hour. In a universe where a light battlemech's greatest asset is its speed, the Raven 1X was going to need to rely upon other assets. With the limitations of the electronic warfare package, the Raven's Mechwarrior would need to be savvy and avoid getting locked into direct conflict. With the 580 movement profile and just 4 tons of Starshield standard plate armor, our adorable Raven 1X did need at least some weaponry with which to defend itself should it get cornered. 2 Series Arms medium lasers were added to the mech's right arm stub, and that Harpoon 6 short-range missile launcher was installed into the right torso, fed by 1 ton of ammunition in the left side of the mech. This is a good opportunity to talk about the flightless bird in the room. Similar to other mechs in this weight class, the Raven was designed without lower arm and hand actuators. This produced a more sleek design, but at the cost of utility and being able to stand up quickly after a fall. This design choice added to the reputation of fragility for the Raven, and it would persist throughout the newer variants. Deemed acceptable for field testing and production, the Raven 1X was distributed to various Capelllan units, typically as the 5th member of a command lance. Occasionally, the Raven could be sent on special team missions as needed, but over and over again, the limitations of the technology prevented the Battlemech from seeing its true potential. When the Fourth Succession War again plunged the Inner Sphere into intense fighting, units from the armed forces of the Federated Suns began to salvage a good number of Ravens. Gobbling up Capelllan planets, the new mechs were shipped back for reverse engineering, and some were even repaired and added to the bulk of the House Davion war machine. As a result, the Raven, which was supposed to be a Capelllan wonder weapon that allowed the plucky house to remain competitive, was spreading outside of their control. It was reported that the Raven was so often seen in AFFS units that had experienced frontline combat that civilians assumed it was a brand new design crafted by the great minds in New Avalon. Admitting the Raven was struggling as a platform, Capelllan researchers continued to tinker with the design. Occasionally, they would add one new piece of technology or another in an attempt to improve the electronic systems or give the mech additional protection or speed. Following a successful raid against Bethel Labs, prototype triple-strength Myomer was stolen and returned to Liao space for testing. Unfortunately, this early version of the triple-strength Myomer was incredibly unstable. Several Ravens were upgraded with it before it was discovered that the Myomer suffered what could be described as a rapid unplanned combustion event when exposed to certain chemicals present in the Battlemechs. After putting out the fires, designers went back to the drawing board on both the Myomer as well as the Raven. Eventually, that time and investment would pay off. If you want to run the triple-strength Myomer Raven, it was designated the RVN-3X, and it is indistinguishable from the original beyond the addition of that TSM. Not too shabby for a 3028 Battlemech, still, its top speed while the Myomer is toasty is only 9 hexes, so don't get too excited. In 3030, seeing that the technology just wasn't there for the advanced sensor packaging, the Raven 2X was cobbled together to make it more of a general-purpose light Battlemech. It had 2.5 tons of additional armor, and in addition to the original loadout of 2 medium lasers and an SRM-6, it also carried a large laser in the left torso. 12 single heat sinks were able to keep the mech relatively cool, but heat management skills would be tested. The last thing you want in a light mech that runs at 580 is to take a -1 to your movement speed. 1 year later, a Raven 4X was introduced, which sought to improve the Battlemech's utility through the addition of 5 jump jets, pushing the movement profile to 585. It also carried 7 tons of armor, which further improved its survivability. Of course, once you get to where you're going, you want to lash out like a sulky teen at Thanksgiving, so in addition to the 2 medium lasers and SRM-6 from previous variants, the 4X also carried 2 machine guns installed into the left arm, fed by 1 ton of ammunition. The combination of jump jets and machine guns on this Raven make it one of my favorites for a pre-Helm core variant. While it does lack any of the electronics countermeasures that the mech is known for, it's still a fun, jumpy light mech. A nearby Thunder added its withering autocannon fire to the assault, and between them they stripped most of the armor from the front of the battery. A Raven, moving at full run parallel to the wall, threw a pair of medium lasers and a flight of missiles into the mix as it passed. 2 of the missiles punched through, detonating inside and touching off the ammunition stores for the battery. Eris actually felt the shockwave of the blast as the battery effectively ceased to exist, the explosion taking a large chunk of the fortifications with it. "There's our crack in the wall," the Lenjiang called out over the general combat frequency. "Jisong units, force a breach." The Killing Fields, page 208, by Lauren L. Coleman. The discovery of the Helm memory core, along with its dissemination across the inner sphere, breathed much-needed life into the Raven project. Sure, it took 2 decades and saw the mech spread across the inner sphere, but good things come to mechs that wait. Hellespont Industries on Cyan got to work dusting off the plans for the Raven and seeking about finally making the advanced tech Battlemech that it was originally conceived to be. Their changes were substantial for the Raven 3L, both in loadout and structure. The swap to a 210 XL Fusion engine pushed the mech's top speed to 97.2 km per hour, or a 690 on the tabletop. This, along with the 4.5 tons of ferrofibrous armor, bought some mass for use in a bevy of fancy electronics. The traditional 2 medium lasers in the right arm were left in place, along with the SRM-6 in the right torso. However, now they would be joined by 4 different tools to both boost the Raven's survivability and also help out as an artillery and indirect fire spotter. The first addition was target acquisition gear in the right torso. For those who need the refresher, the tag was first introduced in 2600 under the Terran hegemony, but had been increasingly difficult to find in use before it was finally declared an extinct technology in 2835. When used as designed, the unit carrying the tag could paint a target with its laser to allow for guided artillery rounds or missiles to ID and track said target until it was rendered into little bits of burning slag. To aid in closer range fire support, the Apple Churchill guiding NARC missile beacon launcher was added to the left arm and fed by 12 beacons stored in the left torso along with case-protected SRM-6 ammunition. The NARC technology was refined by the Terran hegemony back in 2587 and consisted of a missile that had a magnetic grappling device instead of an explosive warhead. Once attached to the metal of the intended target, it pulsed out a signal that guided munitions like LRMs could follow. Though similar to the accuracy boost of an Artemis fire control system, the NARC's signal persists until the beacon itself is destroyed. Hellespont was banking on the Raven being savvy and sneaky enough to be a force multiplier on the battlefield, strutting around and hitting multiple targets with those NARC beacons. In order to facilitate this, the designers included a Guardian ECM package in the left torso. Officially, finally, the Raven could undertake Operation Sneaky Sneak, just as the Founding Fathers intended. The Guardian ECM was another Terran hegemony creation that actively filled enemy scanners with garbage information and noise, in hope of concealing friendly units within that 180-meter bubble of protection. It could even disrupt the effects of enemy electronic warfare technology like NARC beacons, Beagle active probes, and the lock obtained through an Artemis IV fire control system. Suddenly, having a Raven around was a great way to extend your own life on the hectic battlefields of the 31st century. The last addition to the Raven 3L was a Beagle active probe located in the center torso which could help counter the electronics countermeasures of enemy units. Countering the countermeasures. Gotta love it. It had a range of 4 hexes and could detect even well-hidden mechs seeking to leap out from cover. All of the electronic warfare gear on the 3L added up to 9 tons, which was a little over a quarter of the Battlemech's total mass. Full disclosure, I've only ever played one double-blind game of tabletop BattleTech in my life, but on the few occasions that I've used the Raven 3L in Megamech matches, it has performed well as a wrench thrown into enemy plans to control an area. Across the pantheon of Helm memory core upgrades, the Ravens was one of the most deserved and really helped the mech reach its potential. Good on you, little Raven. The 3L Raven saw action primarily among the Capellans and allied units of the Capellans, but pressures of uncertain economic conditions also led to the Raven's export to both the Free Worlds League and the Draconis Combine. A large number of such purchases for the Free Worlds League actually led to its next official variant in 3052. Kai's Stormcrow and 2 bird-like ravens formed the vanguard of the St. Ives force. In addition to being faster than the pillagers, cataphracts, and blackjacks that made up the rest of the company, the Ravens were equipped with a lot of electronics that made detection of the enemy easy, and also jammed some of their sophisticated fire control systems. The calm district's gently rolling hills and sparse tree stands didn't really allow for much in the way of hidden mechs, but the Guardian electronic countermeasures suites on the Ravens did offer some protection against ambush. Prince of Havoc, page 56, by Michael A. Stackpole. It would only be a few years' wait for the next update to the Raven with the previously hinted at 3M variant. This thing better have a lot of Velcro and places to store Post-its. Huh? What's that? Okay, not that 3M. The Free Worlds League Raven didn't see much in the way of structural changes, though it did have 1 fewer heatsink than the 3L. The loadout for the 3M was much more traditional as it was turned into a fire support battlemech. Its biggest weapon was a long-range Missile 15 rack installed into the right torso. It was fed by 2 tons of ammunition in the case-protected left torso. To help provide some close-range protection and to help infantry self-actualize as charred Texas barbecue, 2 standard small lasers were split between the side torsos and joined by a small pulse laser in the right arm. Finally, a NARC missile beacon was added to the left arm to better facilitate the delivery of exothermic munitions in a timely and accurate manner. Man, I should be writing LinkedIn profiles for a living. I missed my true calling in life. The 2 tons of NARC pods are plenty for a lot of delicious fun, and the Raven 3M has the speed to get in and get out in order to pelt targets with LRMs. Hopefully with the aid of other fire support units that can take advantage of the NARC beacon's sweet digital chirp. Heat isn't an issue, even with just 10 single heat sinks, as the only way to generate more than 10 is to fire everything while on the run. This is pretty unlikely due to the minimum range of the LRMs, but you do you. Overall, I like the 3M as a change of pace from earlier variants. It doesn't totally abandon the calling for the Raven to be an electronic warfare machine, so it's all good. It would be 9 years before the next official Raven, and it would bring substantial changes in both loadout and platform. While the Raven 4LC retained the XL engine, it was also the beneficiary of the double heatsink upgrade as well as 6 tons of new stealth armor. For the uninitiated, shooting at a target equipped with stealth armor active adds a +1 to hit modifier at medium range and +2 at long range. The cost for that is 10 additional heat generated for the mech when the armor is active. Now we know why it has double heat sinks. The 4LC carries TAG in its right torso and a NARC missile beacon launcher in its left arm. A Guardian ECM sits in the left torso, and for the first time, a C3 computer benefiting in electronic warfare Battlemech in the 3060s was there and ready to go. As far as weaponry goes, the traditional loadout saw the upgrade from standard medium lasers to the ER variety. An ER small laser is added to the center torso as well. Finally, the good old SRM-6 in the right torso remained, and its 1 ton of ammunition was stored in the left torso. If you're not a fan of the C3 computer, don't panic, because the standard Raven 4L that debuted just a year later in 3063 is essentially the same mech as the 4LC, but with a Beagle active probe instead of the C3 computer. It still carries the 6 tons of stealth armor, runs at the same speed, and has those 10 double heat sinks. Easy peasy. The last of the Raven 4 series was the Raven 4 LR, and it hit the battlefields in 3073. Structurally, it remained the same as the previous in the 4 series variants, except the loadout was tweaked to make room for a multi-missile 7 launcher placed into the left torso, which was both aided by an Artemis 4 fire control system, but also fed by 2 tons of case-protected ammunition in the right torso. This way, the mech could carry 1 ton each of LRMs and SRMs and still have plenty of ammo for the battle. 3 ER medium lasers, split 2 in the right arm and 1 in the left, completed this mech's offensive weaponry. A TAG system sat in the right torso, Guardian ECM in the left, and a Beagle active probe added to the center torso rounds out the build. Overall, the Raven 4 LR is a good general-purpose electronic warfare Raven. The MML is solid for always being able to contribute to a fight, and it may be the obvious choice for the 3 if you're running Aero 4 units that can benefit from the TAG. I really enjoy the Raven 4 series as a test bed for stealth armor. They don't go crazy with other specialty technologies, so they're good variants for playing out your Operation Sneaky Sneak fantasies. Geoffrey responded first. Major, we are under heavy attack from the 4th MAC. Can I assume you have something to do with that? We're being jammed. Declan glanced at his communications display and realized she was right. Aside from the 4 of them, he was no longer getting the tactical updates he had been receiving earlier. He spotted a Capelllan Raven rushing down one of the nearby streets and snapshot a PPC to try to tag it. A bolt of cerulean lightning missed, but the Raven did not wait around for him to try again, quickly disappearing down a side street. Yeah, I could say that, Seamus replied. Paid in Blood, page 159 by Michael J. Saravella. As the fiery 3070s were wrapping up, Hellespont Industrials once again sought to update the Raven with the latest and greatest in technology. By 3078, they were well on their way to deciding which items could help maximize the Raven's potential as a truly dangerous light support battlemech. The changes included the forging of a new skeletal frame from composite material, as well as an extra light gyro to help save even more mass. The 210 XL fusion engine was preserved from earlier variants, and the 5 tons of ferrofibrous armor was added to the machine in a configuration which gave this Raven a unique look. The Raven X's weapons included 2 medium X pulse lasers in the right arm and a medium-range missile 20 rack installed into the left torso and fed by a single ton of case-protected ammunition. It was also aided by an Apollo fire control system. Other equipment included an Angel ECM suite in the right torso, a laser anti-missile system, and a Bloodhound active probe. Heat wasn't an issue for the Raven X unless the laser anti-missile system kicked on after an alpha strike. In that case, the mech would end up at 5+ into the red with the associated -1 to movement. While it's not deadly, remember this is a light mech and speed is life. If a mech warrior can predict missiles will be fired at it soon, it might be worth laying off one of the X-pulse lasers. As impressive as the build looks, the Capelllan Strategos planners were not impressed. The primary concern was the increased cost for the Raven X, and it did not necessarily translate into survivability or enough battlefield value. According to Megamech, the X cost 7.73 million C-bills, which is quite a bit, but not as horrifying as Battlemechs out there with XXL engines. Alas, it's unlikely that this version of the Raven will be spotted on the battlefield unless you lead a daring raid on the Hellespont Industrials plant on Xi'an and steal one of the prototypes. The Raven bounded around the mess hall in pursuit of the fleeing vehicle. Rose also started the charger toward the main gate, but the Raven got there first, its bird-like legs driving the mech's small body with increasing speed. As the vehicle slowed to take the first corner in the road, Ajax fired his Harpoon 6 missiles. Someone yelled a warning over the open channel, but Rose couldn't identify the anguished voice. True to their name, 5 of the 6 missiles harpooned the side of the vehicle as it slid into the turn. Powered by forward momentum and lateral explosions, the vehicle completed the turn and slid off the road. Main event, page 266, by James D. Long. Our last official Raven configuration is a Dark Age entry. The Raven 5L scurried off the assembly lines in 3125 with some unique goodies on it. But before we get into it, we do need to point out that in 3123, we saw the introduction of the Raven 2. This 40-ton Battlemech really is a different creature, and though it was produced by Helipoint on Xi'an, we're not going to get into it, but I will say that I'm not a fan because it sports a TS EMP cannon, which I think is one of the least fun weapons ever added to the BattleTech universe. So we're going to move on. The Raven 5L was equipped with an extra light 280 fusion engine which pushed the mech's top speed up to 129.6 km per hour, or an 8-12 movement profile. The addition of an extra light gyro shaved off another 1.5 tons of mass, and stealth armor made its return, with 6 tons providing 96 points of protection. With 10 double heat sinks, this left the remaining mass for weaponry and equipment. The 5L had to rely upon 2 ER medium lasers in its right arm to do most of the heavy lifting, though if things got extremely heated at close range, it also carried 3 single-shot SRM-2s in the right torso. As far as EW tech goes, the 5L carried a tag system in the right torso, an Angel ECM in the left, and for the first time an improved NARC launcher was added to the left arm, along with 3 tons of pods stored in the left torso. The INARC beacons function as the originals would, except that the INARC missiles are larger and carry more fuel so they can travel farther, out to 15 hexes. Unfortunately, they can also be brushed off by a Battlemech with arms in the same mechanic as dislodging swarming infantry. Overall, the Raven 5L is a solid entry into the Raven pantheon, though some might take issue with the lack of a serious punch. Its 8-12 movement speed is a welcome addition and definitely contributes to the original mission statement of creating a mech that could quickly and quietly make a mess of the enemy's plans. It's definitely worth a try. For the totally unofficial and non-canon Raven 1MF, I figured we needed to give this Raven a little unexpected punch. No one expects the stealthy Raven Inquisition. Constructed from the 5L as a base, the 1MF retains the Endosteel, XL engine, XL gyro, and stealth armor. However, I boosted the overall armor coverage to 7.5, maxing out its possible protection. The 8-12 movement profile remains in force, and 11 double heatsinks aim to keep the mech mostly cool. As far as its electronics package, the Guardian ECM was added to the left torso to carry on the Raven tradition. Fans of the channel aren't going to be horribly surprised when I say I put a plasma rifle into the mech's right arm. I then further boosted its utility through the addition of an actuator enhancement system to give it an additional -1 to aim improvement. In the left arm, 3 emotional support ER small lasers were added as an insurance policy against close-range targets. Though what infantry would dare rushing a mech with a plasma rifle is an open question. I see a Raven 1MF running alongside the Raven 5Ls and other light mechs as the muscle in the scouting and spotting lance. A lot of light and medium mechs are finely tuned on their heat curves, so adding 6 more heat would throw a wrench into their gears and possibly open them up to more incoming fire should they suffer that movement point penalty. Did I go too far with the plasma rifle? Is it too pricey for what it delivers? What do you think of the Raven 1MF? If you want to give it a try, I've included a link to the PDF record sheet for it in the video notes below. If it dies in one turn, just don't tell me. Instead, let's weave me a tale of fantastical battlefield glory. So why do we love the Raven? It's a bit of a tough answer because the lore explanation for the Battlemech's existence is so strong, while on the tabletop its skills are often underutilized due to the fact that most people aren't playing double-blind rules. The Raven was a bold attempt by the Capellans to find a technological edge, and though it did take a few decades to get there, eventually it did find a good perch. I would absolutely include the Raven in with Battlemechs like the Cataphract and Vindicator on the list of very solid Capelllan designs. Aesthetically, the Raven has a sleek design which hints at the concept of totem mechs while not going totally overboard. We're not going to count some of that older art where the beak on the Raven is absurdly long. Let's keep it tight and trim, Raven. As always, I'm curious what you think about this week's Battlemech. Is the Raven a go-to for your light mech scouting needs, or is it surpassed by other light scouting mechs? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you as always for coming by as we talked BattleTech, and thank you to those from the MechFrog Discord who shared their painted mech minis. If you want to join us, I've included the link to the Discord server in the video notes below. If you enjoy the video and feel it's worthy, don't forget the thumbs up button, and even hitting the subscribe button will make it much more likely that you'll see my nonsense in the future. For those who have taken the extra step of becoming a channel member or supported on Ko-fi, thank you. Without you, none of this would be possible. Until we meet again, please take care of yourself and your loved ones by making this world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.